Having only lived in Dorset for 6 years, I was bemused by the atmosphere surrounding Lyme Regis. It's a place of tourism, but also community, with so many distinct events and lifestyles to choose from. I have always wondered how it had reached this point. How did Lyme always manage to be the little town that could? I will take you through a story of hardship, but also one of hope. A story of a seaside town that has always rolled through the punches and pushback to become what it is today. A place many people call home, and many more hold dear to their hearts. The rich history of such a place is a tale which must be told, and not just the famous parts, but also the nitty-gritty, which may go unnoticed or uncredited. Join me on this journey as we turn the time back to around 40 AD. Prior to 43 AD, very little is known about Lyme and its surroundings, so take much of this with a pinch of salt. The basic outline, we assume, is that there were some human settlements, and these were shaped by Lyme's rising sea levels. However, finding evidence of this in the present is nearly impossible, as much of the shoreline 2,000 years ago has long since been covered by the ocean. One thing we do have to show are Bronze Age burial mounds found all over Lyme in places such as Charmouth, Shatwick Common and Harddown Hill, which are about the only prehistoric remains of early settlements within the area. Let us move onwards. Formed late into the Iron Age, the Holcombe settlement was one of the first major milestones in the permanent settlement of the area. Those who lived there were generally farmers, herding sheep, growing crops and raising cattle. These farmers were not affluent, and their most valuable possessions would have been along the lines of a bronze mirror. Once we reach 43 AD, things become hazy. The Romans invaded around this time and the settlements were abandoned, leaving their history behind. Skipping past the Roman era of England in 400 AD, Western rulers started to pay some mind to Dorset, gradually taking over the area. In the end though, evidence for progress they made in this time period is scarce, as it seems as though Lyme was left alone for the time being. That is until the Saxons arrived. 774 AD. Sherborne Abbey owned the salt boiling rights to the land adjacent to the River Lyme, the river of which we still see flowing through the town today. This was the first major use of what was called Beurre de Lyme as a settlement, and as a means of making money. 1086. The first ever mention of Lyme within the 1086 Domesday Book, the series of consensuses that William the Conqueror held to survey information about his land. A major milestone for the protagonist of this story. 1284 AD. A royal charter was granted to Lyme, cementing the name Regis, meaning of the king, as part of the town's name. As we move onward, it is clear our little settlement has the potential to grow into something much, much bigger. The Cobb was of great economic importance in and around the town, as it created what was essentially an artificial harbour that enabled the town to develop as a port and shipbuilding centre from the 13th century onwards. This was especially significant during the period between 1780 to 1850, as around 100 ships were launched. Lyme was also well situated for trade with France due to its southern location and ease of access through the Cobb. In the end though, issues started to arise. Despite at points being larger than even the port of Liverpool, it could not handle the increasing size of the ships throughout the 19th century, causing its influence and importance to diminish. This led to a dark time in Lyme Regis' history. Outside influence was also having a major impact on the downfall of Lyme Regis. The Fane family and Earls of Westmoreland, in particular, who had been manipulating and controlling the town's politics for over 100 years. These people were only stopped by the increasing difficulty of illegal practices, including bribery and political intimidation. With no good way of making money, and those in power seemingly only wanting the benefits through corrupt means, who or what would be there to save the town in its time of need? It would be a man named Hollis. Thomas Hollis, born in 1720, was a man who has not gotten the credit he is due for helping Lyme in its most desperate time of need. In the 1760s, as Lyme fast approached its diminishing usefulness as a port, the future of the town was called into question. Hollis wanted to change that. He owned estates in West Dorset and late into the 1760s became a regular visitor of Lyme, growing deeply attached to the town.
He had even rented rooms at the now closed, but still very important, Three Cups Hotel, which had once sat adjacent to the Cobb Gate. Hollis saw the downtrodden Lyme Regis and set about improving it. He would buy up ramshackle buildings below the middle row in Broad Street, then presenting them to the town for demolition, greatly cleaning up the outward appearance of the town. Hollis provided funding to repair the walls of the Cobb Gate and to extend the walk along the seafront, beyond the old stone fort where he had steps built to access the beach, which in time became what is now known as the Marine Parade. Hollis was not just a very altruistic person, but also a kind one. He was seen to have strong views on religious discrimination, although it was said he rarely ever visited places of worship. Despite this, he gave money to repair the church and handed out generous donations to the Baptist chapel. Acts such as these led people to describe him as someone who acted the Good Samaritan all his life, helping the poor and living for the benefit of others. He even bought out the Cobb Gate warehouse, where in 1777 the new assembly rooms were built. He was so invested in trying to bring attention to Lyme that he even used his connections to bring a family member of then Prime Minister William Pitt down to Lyme to attract tourism and make the area more fashionable. Not to mention the fact he was a major benefactor of Harvard University and therefore had connections that many people of that age couldn't dream of. Hollis unfortunately passed away in 1774 at 54 years of age, but his legacy is one that should be remembered, regardless of the credit he was never truly given in the past.
Moving into the 19th and 20th centuries, Lyme Regis started to bloom. From pop culture appearances to hotspot destinations, the public of the United Kingdom started to see the renewed place Lyme Regis for what it has always been for, a beautiful place. Take the Three Cups Hotel. Dating back to the early 1800s, the hotel has housed many major figures, such as J.R.R. Tolkien, famous for writing the ever-present Lord of the Rings series. The hotel has even been a place for major events to occur, such as when General Eisenhower delivered a briefing shortly before D-Day to his senior officers in the first floor lounge. There's also the Town Mill, a water mill which is known to have dated back to 1340, but may date it back even further, as the Domesday Book previously mentioned recorded a mill. Or the Lyme Regis Aquarium, opened in the late 1950s, it's a place that showcases rich, local and abundant sea life. You can see the growth of Lyme as a tourist destination through the popularity of its landmarks, and all of these places have been staples of Lyme Regis as a hotspot. When you ask people about Lyme, even those who aren't completely used to the area can always tell you about the aquarium or point you in the direction of the mill. Lyme's pop culture influence also shouldn't be understated. Being such an idyllic place, it has set the scene for many popular books and movies. The French Lieutenant's Woman was a popular book written by John Fowles, later adapted into a film in the early 1980s. There's also All About the Town, set in the fictitious location of Tormouth, but clearly representing Lyme Regis. Not to mention Ammonites and Persuasion, all films that starred Lyme Regis as a prominent scene. Or even much more recently, when in 2021, the crew for the film Wonka, set to be released in 2023, including Timothée Chalamet and Paul King, came down to the Cobb Harbour to film. Lyme Regis's influence, popularity and market only continue to grow, as old stigmas go and fresh identities come. It has made it through the biggest struggle to be rewarded and remembered in its newfound presence as one of the most popular holiday destinations in the United Kingdom alongside the rest of the Jurassic Coast. Lyme Regis has solidified itself as a staple within the Jurassic Coast, only giving it more prominence and showing off its rich history to not only the rest of the country, but to the entire world. As we move into the concluding chapter of our story, we look at the present and the future of what Lyme has to offer. What is the reason people come to Lyme? We may have previously talked about how Lyme reached this point, but what is it that encourages people to come other than the simply gorgeous scenery? It is its diversity, history, and community. Lyme Regis holds many events each year and has many locally owned shops and restaurants, yet it keeps its fresh and trendy style through its few popular brands and its unique stores. In terms of what there is to do in Lyme, let's have a good look. To point out the obvious, along the entire Jurassic Coast, fossil hunting is a big draw, and there are many ways of doing it. Be it with a team, just with your family, or even just you. It's a calming and enjoyable experience to have right next to the pristine ocean. Into fireworks, Bonfire Night at Lyme Regis is a massive event including a torchlight procession, a giant bonfire, and of course, spectacular fireworks. Even for those who enjoy the performing arts, there is Be Sharp, a music charity for young people which runs workshops, events, and training all throughout the year. Be Sharp run one of their own events as well, a busking festival open to all artists, as well as an open-air Big Mix festival made to present music made by young people. The Marine Theatre also has showings and performances all year round for those who love performing. Even something as simple as the skate park has birthed its own community, being a popular destination for younger locals to relax, hang out, and have fun. Not to mention all of the locally owned shops which have become staples of Broad Street's popularity. Just look at Frontside Clothing, a recently opened shop that appeals to the skater culture Lyme has grown to have. Selling boards, popular skater brands like Vans, and general clothing as well, it has become a smash hit. Red Panda is another notable example, an Asian fusion family-owned restaurant opened in the summer of 2017, which the community has quickly grown very fond of. And that's only the tip of the iceberg. Swim, Poco Pizza, the Volunteer Inn, Lyme Regis Amusements, Tom's, the Royal Standard, the Harbour Inn, the Cobb Arms, and so much more. Ask any local for directions to these places and they'll know immediately. Lyme is chock full of amazing places to visit with a vibrant community, beautiful scenery, and a historic presence dating back thousands of years. Finally, I'd like to give a special mention to the Lyme Regis Museum. It is an absolute treasure trove of information and history surrounding the entirety of Lyme, and without their support, this mini documentary wouldn't have been possible. I cannot recommend looking around the museum enough, regardless of whether it's your first, second, or even third time in Lyme Regis. I can guarantee you'll learn something new.
You look back and wonder, how did Lyme get to where it is now? Through the heights of it being a major port, to the lows of being made virtually useless due to the Industrial Revolution. Lyme has stuck around and become a mainstay of UK tourism, as well as a place more and more people can call home. Nobody can predict the future, but I am confident in saying that Lyme will only continue to grow as we move into the next decades of life. Between its renewed markets, famous destinations, and many activities, Lyme Regis will thrive. Tourism and the community have stayed strong throughout the current pandemic of COVID-19, keeping local businesses alive and holding Lyme's identity alive along with it. I truly believe Lyme will stick around for a long time to come.